right now, we turn to the phone lines for one of the most prolific guests because he is willing to do it whenever. And whenever, again, is tonight. He is the man who hosts the NFL on Fox podcast. His name is David Alphonse Helman. David, what's happening?
That's better than my real middle name. I like that a lot. Man, thank you so much for letting me be part of your final get right. Like, there's nowhere I'd rather be, dude. What's going on?
Not much, brother. We're just eating up the time, talking to the Tolos, enjoying things. What's going on with you? Like, going into another season, actually, let's cut the crap. Like, you know, I want to talk football with you about as much as you want to talk football in this moment. As a man who has had to move, best moving advice from David Helman is?
Oh, yeah. That is in your future, isn't it?
It is.
Man, let me tell you what. Just pay for the movers. Spend the money wherever you need to. Like, obviously, you know, you're moving cities, so you're going to need to do that anyway. But hire people to move it into the house for you. As much as you can do, you will be grateful that you spent the money, even if it stretches your budget a little bit, because we're getting older, man. Like, you don't need to throw your back out or break your thumb or do any of that other nonsense that can happen when you're moving heavy furniture around, and you'll just be less stressed out and not in pain. You won't have to inconvenience any of your friends or family. Like I said, even if it stretches the budget a little bit, it's money well spent. I promise you.
If you couldn't tell that David Helman is from the Brian Broaddus School of Life.
Well, you can tell.
There you go.
Broke your thumb. That sounds personal.
It sure is. I got the cast off today. And you know how I broke my thumb? Moving damn furniture around. Ooh. Because my life has been in constant uproar ever since I moved out here to the West Coast. So take it from me. Don't spend a month with your thumb in a cast and just pay for somebody else to handle all that crap for you.
Non-throwing hand?
Thankfully, yes. It's my non-dominant hand. So life could have been a lot worse, but it still wasn't fun.
All right, Helman, I'm going to ask you the generic Cowboys questions, and I want your responses. CeeDee Lamb gets signed when?
Oh, you know, I looked this up. I was talking about this on Speak today on FS1. You realize today was the day that Zach Martin signed. So, for as much as we wring our hands, and obviously it's a big story, and I get that, but Zach didn't show up until this far into camp last year. So we're still right in line. I'm not going to go as far as to say I'm surprised that it's not done yet, but we're getting to where it needs to happen. Basically, I think CD needs to be back with the team by the time they head back to Texas. So I think that's like the 21st or something like that. So that it gives them another week. I'll say like Monday or Tuesday of next week, if not before that, is what I'm thinking.
Mr. Helman, you're on the West Coast, so I'm guessing obviously you cover all things National Football League. Two-part question. Number one, we're hearing a lot of Jaden Daniels love being NFC East guys, and the fact that this Washington Commander team could, and I stress could in asterisk, have a Houston Texan-like rebound this year when you look at the makeup of the roster and kind of the similarities between both teams, especially at the quarterback role. Where do you fall in that, or am I tripping when I say that? Number two, as we get older, do you get lesser or fewer mayonnaise jokes nowadays?
That's fine. I'll start with the second one just because that's been fresh on my mind. Honestly, at this point, I'm turning 36 this year.
Okay.
I'd say it doesn't happen as often as it used to. I know. I'm getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen as often as it used to.
I'd imagine.
Maybe there are a couple people in my life who to this day call me mayo or mayonnaise. But it doesn't really happen often. But then when some nonsense happens, like the Will Levis Hellman's mayonnaise perfume that came out, people have been hitting me up about that all week, where they're like, "Oh my God, did you see this?" Or people in the work Zoom will be like, oh, I bet you're like, oh, are you part of the Helman family, Dave? And I'm like, if I was part of that Helman family, I wouldn't need a job. So
I wouldn't be talking to y'all.
Yeah, I get it less. Man, I'm excited about the Commanders, obviously. I mean, I went to LSU. Jaden Daniels is my guy. I see the Commanders being a frisky team. I like what they did this year. I think a lot of people laughed at the moves they made and, Austin Eckler's washed and Zach Ertz is washed and, these guys aren't actually that good. But consider how bad the Commanders were and how few parts of their roster are good. I think it's a great starting point for a number 2 overall pick to be in. It's obviously not as good as the situation in Chicago, but that's a very unique circumstance. But you look at Washington's roster, and you're like, man, for a team that drafted number 2 overall, I see the vision. Like the bones of a decent team are there, and so I think they're going to be fun. I think they'll probably be a tough out. I can't help but think that Dan Quinn just does not have enough talent on that defense to make them truly formidable. There's a couple players I like. Jonathan Allen's like one of the most underrated players in the NFL, in my opinion. But, I don't think Dan got his Micah Parsons yet. He kind of fell into that when he got to Dallas. I don't think even he knew he was going to have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And I just don't see that guy. So I don't think there's enough there that I take the Commanders seriously as like a threat to win the division or anything, or even have a winning record. But I do think they'll be a pain in the butt for a lot of teams this year. I think they'll be fun.
Talking to Dave Helman, NFL on Fox podcast, right here on 105 through the Fan. And Helman, we're going to do a little take jukebox here right quick. Just NFL thing that's been on your mind that you just like, I kind of want to get this off my chest.
It's a good day for that. I just filmed the new episode of the pod. You can check it out tomorrow. Where, spoiler alert, not to ruin it, I guess, but we talked about teams that we think are getting overlooked, teams that I don't think you're going to hear a lot about this preseason that I like a lot. I won't give you all of them because please go download the podcast if you're interested in that. But I'll just say, kind of in a similar line of what I was just talking about with Washington, I'm excited to see the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals are a fun team, a better team than the average NFL fan realizes. And when you consider that this time last year, we were having serious conversations about, like, are they tanking? Like, because they looked so bad, and Kyler Murray was coming off the injury. And it was just like, is this team even going to come within 20 points of anybody all year? And not only did they do that, but like they were surprisingly frisky and fun. And now they have Marvin Harrison Jr. Some of those young guys are coming along. Kyler looked like Kyler in the second half of last year. I'm not trying to sell you on the Cardinals as like a Super Bowl contender, but I could see Arizona being a team who, at some point in the year, they're in the playoff mix, and everybody's like, what the hell? We did not see that coming. So I'm trying to jump on that bandwagon early and say, take a look at the Cardinals because I think they're pretty fun.
I like it. I like it quite a bit.
I love that. I really, really do. Sticking on the West Coast, a team not far from you over in Vegas, and that being the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm saying this because one of my closest friends is a diehard Vegas Raiders fan. And so, and again, the Raiders are one of those teams where it just feels like the NFL is a lot more fun, which is hard to say. I mean, the NBA is better with the Knicks, yada, yada. But the NFL does seem like it's a little bit more fun when the Raiders are good. That being said, Antonio Pierce was playing with house money last year. I mean, literally anybody could have walked in there and after Josh McDaniels, and it would have felt like, okay, we're all supporting him. What are you? What's kind of your take on what kind of coach Antonio Pierce is, and is it hard to judge him, or are we gonna have to kind of delay that until he gets a real quarterback?
I kid you not, Fred. I am so serious. The Raiders are another team I highlighted in my podcast.
Okay.
And I wanna be clear. I'm not trying to predict playoff teams that nobody's talking about. I don't see the Raiders making the playoffs. I don't think I see the Raiders even flirting with a winning record. But I do think that the Raiders are just a better team than anybody in the league wants to give them credit for, other than the very, very obvious problem that they have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL.
Yeah.
But you look at and obviously that is so important. I'm not trying to downplay that. But you look at the rest of the roster, and you're like, man, this offensive line is pretty nice. Devontae Adams, I think, still has the juice. You got Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer there at tight end. Zamir White at running back, we'll see what he is, but all the word out of training camp is that he's an exciting young player, played at Georgia. They know a thing or two about producing good running backs. You look at that talent on offense, and then the Raiders might have the best pass rush in the NFL. They're certainly going to be on the short list. Like, I don't think the Raiders are going to win a lot of games, but I can't wait to flip over and watch Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins playing with each other. And, oh, by the way, Malcolm Kuntz, who I don't think the average NFL fan is really aware of, had 8 sacks last year. So that's 3 horses you got. That Raiders defense was feisty last year. So I think AP is he's the classic motivator, locker room guy. I think the culture is going to be good in Vegas. I do think that only goes as far as your quarterback is willing to take you. And that's like, I'm not saying you need to take them seriously, but I think the Raiders are a lot closer to being a good team than people realize. And I'm stealing this from somebody else, but it's fascinating to think about. What if Michael Penix Jr. had fallen to Vegas? What if
I think that's
Atlanta,
what they were expecting, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have kind of theorized that maybe Vegas just thought he would be there. And if he was, we would be talking about this team in a completely different way. I mean, and obviously we don't know how good Michael Penix Jr. is going to be, but even the hope of a rookie franchise quarterback would make this such a compelling team. So if I had to guess, the Raiders are probably going to take their lumps this year, but next year they will be in a position to go after a quarterback. And when they get one, I think the pieces will be there for them to be a pretty damn good team.
Okay. I think you're hitting on all the takes that I particularly like. And for this, you know exactly where I'm going. We got to go to a little bit of college football because it wouldn't be a Dave Helman visit if we didn't. With the new college football game, are you I'm playing with my favorite team, which of course would be LSU, or are you bringing some team in the mid-major space? I know that's not what we call them, or some group of 5 team into the prominence that they deserve in the game.
The way I do it is I'll play with LSU until I get a handle on the controls in the playbook. But like, I'm not interested in playing more than like a handful of games with LSU. Like, that's not fun. And literally, I told you, Reg, I told you what I would be doing. I paused my game. I've got Louisiana Tech in the conference championship game. If we win, we're sneaking into the playoffs as a mid-major. And if we lose, then we're probably getting stuck in like the Bahamas Bowl or whatever. So like, yeah, it's all about the mid-major. I took Louisiana Tech from terrible to the best mid-major program in the country. And now, I got my eyes on the Power 5 whenever this season's over with. We got big plans as soon as we're done playing.
How much time do you feel like it's the recruiting aspect of the game? Because I just broke my college football 25 cherry last week with my 16-year-old son, and as much as I enjoyed it, and look, I'm 43 years old, so I'm an old head when it comes to, I played the old school college football video game back in the day, but my God, dude, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I got to go to bed. Like, I just can't, I got to live. I got a life to lead. Like, how did they overdo it with the recruiting?
No, absolutely not. I mean, yeah, you got to be a little bit of a sicko to run a successful dynasty.
You do.
Fortunately, I think it's just like good recruiting in real college football. Like, if you're good enough at it, you can kind of put it on autopilot. You kind of, you get your early commits. You commit some time to this guy, and you're like, all right, I can put this on the back burner. I've got 8 to 10 recruits. I'm good. And then I love they put some real deal thought into this because obviously at Louisiana Tech, like, you're not recruiting at a top tier level. So what do? I just hit the transfer portal when the season's over and convince some unhappy 4-star and from the SEC to come play for me. So I just swoop in when the season's over and steal all the unhappy players. It's perfect. It's worked out very well for me. So I got no complaints.
I've often called him primetime David Helman, host of the NFL on Fox podcast, frequent guest of the Get Right. And beloved friend, Dave, I appreciate you. Miss you, my man.
Love you, Reg. Wherever you go, you got a fan in me, buddy. And I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all soon.